Okay, on this file, you should already have this, which I sent you. I've attached it again to the work for today, but you should already have it because you want to be working on the same document that you worked on for your design brief, okay? So on this, I've just modified this ever so slightly here because I've highlighted this section here, but on the file that you picked up last week, it should be this one that's highlighted. So if I just read the paragraph, it says, based on the conclusions from your investigations, the research you've done, you will outline the design possibilities by producing a design brief, which we've done last week, and the design specification. You should review your progress against both of these throughout your project. That's any work you do on your ideas, development, modeling, making, and finally evaluating. So it's an important document in the design process. Okay, so this kind of outlines it again, so if you're unsure about what you're doing, you could read through this one. So it just says the design specification outlines the restrictions and possibilities for the product that you want to do. It covers things like aesthetics and function. So it tells you down here what we want to do, so 1 to 4. So the list should be in bullet point. Each point should be accompanied by a sentence explaining its importance, the justification. All ideas and developments after we've done this should be aimed to meet this specification list. And then such things might include function. So if you're doing the CD packaging, that's its role, what it has to do. So for instance, if you think back to the roles or principal functions of packaging, you've got preserve, protect, package for transportation, inform. So you might need to do all of these. You might need to be able to get the CD in and out of the packaging. It might have to include some like postcards of the band. So all of these things might have to relate back to your research. So your justification point was to say why that's important. Aesthetics, again, these will all be unique to the genre of music that you've chosen to do from your target audience. So you may mention something about colour. Try not to be too specific in this area. So don't just say, I'd like it to be purple with yellow dots in the background, because that means all your ideas have to be purple with yellow dots. So you've got to be specific, but not too specific. So you could just say, I need to use a combination of bright colours, or I need to use a combination of dark colours or harmonious colours. So you're still being specific, but you're not narrowing it down, which restricts your ideas. The same for the fonts as well. So if you said it must include Arial for the fonts, that means all your ideas have to include Arial. However, if you said I'd need to use a modern looking font, that leaves it open. You're still being specific, but you're not being too specific. That narrows your ideas. Okay. Materials as well. This is rather than putting the actual material. So rather than saying I am going to make it out of card and that's it, that means it has to be made out of card. And there's lots of different types of card that we can use. So focus on the property in this one. So say what the material has to do. So you have to be able to cut the material and why. You have to be able to fold it and why. You have to maybe print onto it so you can get your graphics on there. It might have to have a minimal impact on the environment. Explain why. So think about the properties, what you have to do to the material. Now the dimensions, we all know it has to include at least one CD, but it might be 2 CDs. So you can put that in, so you can say it must include or be able to hold a CD measuring and what are the dimensions of that specific CD. You may include other dimensions. Let's say you're unsure about your dimensions, you could always give us a minimum and a maximum size that it has. So you might say that the packaging needs to be no smaller than X, but no bigger than Y. So rather than not putting any dimensions in, at least we've got some dimensions in which to test the product again. Again, information. So from your research, you might have looked at information that is normally included on some form of professionally produced CD packaging. These are things like track names, barcodes, address details, web addresses, could be social media references on there now, what information you're going to include on your product. And then there are other topics that you might include which I've not put on here as well, such as environmental impact. Okay, so this is the example that we've had before. We just talked about this before. Now, this is where it kind of goes wrong, because in my haste to try and get this out to you, I've managed to put this specification list, which is an old legacy specification list in there, which is editable as well. Do not just lift this off there, otherwise you're gonna have to do it again, or I'll have to remove it from your work. Okay, so this is a mistake on my behalf on there. Okay, you can read through it as guidance, but you cannot copy and paste from this slide, otherwise I'll have to remove that piece of work from your portfolio because you've not done it, okay? But it does give you some idea about the content that needs to go in there, okay? You can use it as a reference, but do not copy from this bit. It's really important that you don't do that. This is an oversight on my behalf, okay? So just be careful with that you don't fall into the trap of looking and copying from that. Okay, so yours will go here on this slide. You should already have your brief up here, and then you'll have applied some reference to your ID, and then your spec list is going to form the bulk of that slide down at the bottom. Any questions, just email me and I'll try and help you out. Okay, but remember about that one. That's an oversight on my behalf.